Velkommen. So this video is a very important one. It's going to be about one of the earliest written evidence we have of Norse or Germanic magic. It's not one of the it's not one of the oldest written evidences. It is the oldest written evidence. We have some rune stones and some carvings and things like that, some archaeological finds that we can get some evidence from, but this text is actual written down in the language, so we know it would have come from pagan times. And these were the Merseburg Charms, and this is very important because this is going to help us in how we look at other examples of magic that come from a lot later on in time, many hundreds of years after the official Christianization of Europe and Scandinavia and all of that. So this is going to help at how we look at those things and link them back to older pagan times. So the Merseburg Charms. Now these charms were found in the 1800s in the cathedral in Merseburg, Germany, and that's a town just outside of Leipzig. So the charms were written on a piece of parchment, sorry, long day. They were written on a piece of parchment, and this dates back to the 9th and 10th century. However, the language that is being used in this suggests that it was used at a much, much earlier date. So this was for sure passed on verbally with time, and it was written down. Could be the 800s or 900s, right? And these were written in Old High German, and this is a very, very old language, and this is the only example of paganism that we find in this language, because everything else was written after the time was Christian, after Germany was officially Christianized, and it was for sure written by priests or something like that. So we have two spells that were in here, and one of them I'll just read here, and I will take a lot more time. I'll be doing a lot more videos on this exact text, because it's the only one we have in this language, and it's the only one, it's the oldest one we have, and it's going to help us a lot on other things. So I'm going to break down this a lot more in other videos, and we can really get detailed into it, but I wanted to take a quick minute to explain how this text can help us understand some of the later spells. So there's two spells in this text, just two. It was one page written down, two spells in Old High German. The first one seemed to be just a spell for warriors, if they were captured in battle, a way to escape, a spell to help them escape their enemies after they were captured in battle. But we'll be looking at one that involves Odin. So Odin was riding in the forest, and with a couple other people. I forget who it is actually now. I think he was riding with Baldur, and Frey was there. I'll break this all down in a later video. But basically the point of the story, he breaks Baldur's horse's leg. He was riding on his horse, on Baldur's horse, and the horse's leg breaks. So then he says a spell, and that he fixes the horse's leg. That's a magical spell. So I'll just read that. It's a pretty long spell, and like I said, I'll go over it in later videos, but I'll read the last part of it now. Bone to bone, blood to blood, joints to joints, so they may be glued. That was the spell. That was the spell that Odin and his followers all said, and they said that to fix the horse's leg. Now fast forward more than 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years, around the 1800s, in the time of the Brothers Grimm. So Joseph Grimm, in chapter 38 of his book, Deutsches Mythologie, examines the survivals of this charm in other areas of the world, Scandinavia, but also others, and I'll show you. So he sees this spell being done in Norway. And I'm going to read a little bit of that just so you can see. In English, of course, translated so everybody can understand. Bone to bone, flesh to flesh, Jesus thereafter laid a leaf so that these should stay in their place. So that's it. That's and almost identical charms were found in Sweden and Denmark, and also Scotland and even England. Only difference is in the Merseburg charms, it was of course Odin, and then later on texts, it was Jesus saying the spell, and he fixed the horse's leg. So this was still done in Norway and Sweden and Denmark and Scotland up until the 1800s when the Grimm brothers observed it and wrote about it there. So that's just a crazy example, and it shows how magic can survive over that time. Yes, it was Christian. The spell that was written down in the 1800s and that people used then was Christian. It was talking about Jesus, but it's almost the exact same spell that was written long before pagan times, 1,000 years before that. So we just pay attention to that when we look at other spells, and this is probably going to be one of the best proofs that we have, one of the best examples of a spell surviving to later on in history, even though it was written down much longer, much after the official Christianization of Scandinavia. It was still a pagan spell. Even if Jesus is in the name, it can be traced back to pagan times, 100%. So there's going to be a lot of other spells like that, but this is the one that's going to have the best proof, and we're going to look at all the other ones as we go. Okay, thank you for today. Good night.